Jocks. Glad you're with us. We mentioned rankings in our previous hour. Some people ranking position groups, some people ranking conferences, some people ranking players. Bill Connelly has his latest S&P rankings up now at ESPN. I'm interested in how much more difficult this process is first for you when taking so many guys that have played good football, some football, which is really valuable, and going other places. How has this process differed for you the last 2 years maybe versus the previous 5 or 6?
Yeah, I mean, 2019 it was pretty straightforward, and then it's kind of ramped up a little bit each year. It is funny. I mean, each year you have to make tweaks to kind of account for the volume of transfers and everything. But I've been kind of heartened by the fact that for the most part projections still do pretty well. I mean, it's generally the same process. Account for transfers. In the returning production figure, you play with recruiting rankings and whatnot, but the weights change every single year, and it's been like a constant keeping up process.
How do you manage it, and how do you weigh it, knowing that a guy was one thing at one place and then all of a sudden he's at a new place, and how do you manage what's expected based on what he's done in the past? Like, I don't know how you connect those dots.
Yeah, I mean, it's really as simple as, everything's just, like percentage of passing yards returning, but then you cram the guys, if you brought in a transfer, you bring in the yards from his last school and you plug it into the numerator and the denominator. It's generalizations. It's just an extreme level of generalization. But again, it seems to place most teams, like there are always going to be misses, but it seems to place most teams about in the weight classes they need to be in at the, as we start the season.
Bill Connelly joining us to talk his S&P rankings for this upcoming season. You seem to be, from a rankings perspective, a little bit higher on Ole Miss than a lot of others I've seen. You have them at 7, the offense at 3, the defense at 20, which if I was going to push back on anything, it might be the defense because I really like the defensive line. But why do you think, other than, let's just say, quarterback, running back, your metrics held Ole Miss in as high a regard as they did versus some other rankings I've seen?
Let's see. Actually, well, I mean, I don't know what we're looking at here. I have them at 16th, actually. So, like, wait.
I have 25. Sorry, I'm looking at the 25 S&P, so that's my fault. So you may be on board with everybody else.
I was worried. No, that's an actually interesting team though, because the numbers seem to have them a little lower than the pollsters do as a whole, and it is going to be really, really interesting. From a Lane Kiffin perspective, he was the best Ole Miss coach for 50 years, and typically a program will regress when losing a figure, but you can kind of talk yourself into the Rebels too, based on what they return in the backfield. So they are one way or the other. They could be a very volatile pick this year, I think.
Well, so follow that up quickly with Greg asked earlier how you sort of weigh returning production from other places. How do you weigh metrically a Lane Kiffin leaving and a Pete Golding taking over?
So that's one thing I've fiddled with the last couple of years, and it really comes down to basically a regression to the mean factor, where if you dramatically overachieved or underachieved in a given season compared to like your 20-year history, some huge history number, and then you and then you change head coaches for whatever reason. If you were overachieving, you might have lost him to a bigger school. If you were underachieving, you fired him. If you make that coaching change after a severe over or underachievement, you tend to regress towards your 20-year history, and that's true even in an era where you can add 50 transfers and completely flip your roster. And so that's been kind of a cool factor that I've added in. And what it basically means is North Texas is, for example, projected to completely collapse, and Oklahoma State is projected to improve dramatically because, among other things, they just grabbed the best, a lot of pieces from the best offense in the country. So it kind of allows me to project teams to change pretty significantly. Whereas, again, like 10 years ago, nobody changes significantly because the roster management moves so slowly.
But answer me this, I guess part of my question mark, for example, you used Oklahoma State as an example there. Like a team that brings a lot of continuity from the previous place, a lot of production from the previous place, but there's a jump in competition. Like, how does that factor in?
Well, I think, at that point I have to rely a little bit on, North Texas, for example, graded out first in SP Plus in offense last season. Obviously not first in defense, but Those numbers, when you account for, that number is supposed to account for the opponent, the level of the opponent. They were just so prolific that even adjusting for opponents, they graded out really, really well. So that kind of backs up the Oklahoma State theory to a certain degree. They're basically, yes, they're going up in competition, but I mean, they're projected 39th overall this season, which I think is pretty fair. They're not projected, like 12th or anything crazy, but they are projected to kind of, it's an acknowledgement of the fact that they have a lot better pieces on their roster, even if those pieces are moving up.
Visiting with Bill Connelly, discussing his S&P rankings out now at ESPN.com. I'm interested in Indiana behind 4 other schools and exactly maybe what is holding you back on Indiana just a little bit, or where they're lacking as opposed to the last season or two heading in. Why are they not a little bit higher? Is it just the other teams in front of them metrically look that much better, or is it just real concerns with actual Indiana?
Yeah, I guess the biggest thing with Indiana, obviously any sort of recent history piece, which doesn't account for much of the projections, but there's a little bit in there. Obviously, like an Ohio State's going to grade out better over like a 5-year period. I think the biggest thing, though, is you look at the teams above them in the projections, they all grade out better in returning production. Like, they're behind number 3 Notre Dame. Notre Dame's first in returning production. They're 35th. Georgia's 9th in returning production, and that bumps them a little bit ahead. Obviously, we're in just constantly on newfound territory with Indiana. None of this was supposed to happen the way it did over the last couple of years, and for all we know, they're never going to lose again. But I think that's the heart of it right there. Is just while they brought in some experienced pieces and that boosts their returning production numbers a little bit, Notre Dame and Georgia specifically are still kind of near the top in that regard, and that inches them ahead.
When you look at Ohio State, I mean, I think a lot of us are very, very bullish on the Buckeyes. Understandably so. They've become one of those teams that you just automatically trust with the personnel they have. Yet there is a decent amount of turnover on defense, and yet it doesn't really affect your projections what that side might be. So how do you look at a team that loses that much quality with 3 picks in the first 11 draft picks, and yet it doesn't really affect the projection there?
Yeah, it's funny with Ohio State. They're 78th in returning production on defense,
right.
But they were so far ahead of the pack last year. They dominated so thoroughly for most of the season that even being projected to fall, they're still projected to have the number 1 defense. That kind of now, I mean, you can certainly make the case that the specific guys they lost from last season were really, really impactful and allowed for them to bring in a new defensive coordinator who was coming from the NFL and had a lot to learn himself. The coaches on the field, so to speak, were allowed that transition to go really smoothly. So, if I'm drawing up these rankings, I'm probably downgrading their defense a little more than what SP Plus has. But that's the general logic, is they were so good on D last year that even projected to fall, they're still ahead of everybody else. And then on offense, they're top 10 in returning production and have very obvious reasons to assume they're going to be really good there.
Bill, we spent a lot of time talking about the middle of the SEC and how congested it looked like it could be. Maybe either 4 or 5 all the way down to 15 feel like they could be very similar. If we remove the Ole Miss conversation that we already have, you have Missouri a little bit higher. You have Auburn and South Carolina a little bit higher than a lot of those other teams that we've sort of jammed in there. Tennessee, Mississippi State would be in that mix. I would have Vanderbilt in that mix as well. Why would, say, Tennessee, Missouri, South Carolina, Auburn, what would be the big separators for any of those schools that you would look at and say, this is why they look like they're going to be based on my metrics compared to the others that we sort of classify together?
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things that always happens with the preseason polls versus the SP Plus projections is SP Plus always has the middle of the SEC a little bit higher. And I think, we really, I guess you could just, boil that down to somebody has to lose these games. And a lot of the preseason polls, the pollsters are kind of trying to project what they think it's going to look like. So a lot of these teams in like the teens and 20s are going to go 7-5. But in a ranking like this where it's pure power rating, they're not punished for that. But I mean, I think when you're looking at, a lot of these teams like, Missouri, for instance, if their new quarterback clicks, then why wouldn't that be like a top 15 team? They've been a top 20 or 25 team for 3 years now. And if they've got the quarterback they need, then it's all good. Of course, they might not. He might keep taking tons of sacks and throwing tons of interceptions, and they might fall a lot further. But when you try to split the difference between recent history and what they have back and all these other things, I feel like Missouri's kind of earned a top 25 level spot. Tennessee's really interesting too because their production numbers are good. SP Plus doesn't know that they're replacing their quarterback potentially with a true freshman quarterback and what that might entail. It just knows that there are a lot of other really experienced pieces in that offense, and therefore kind of gives them the benefit of the doubt, especially with how good their offense was last year.
Finally, as you kind of assess the top end of the SEC, you have a team like Georgia that brings back so much, but maybe there are a couple question marks about the upside. And I think all the questions about Georgia's upside, their ceiling, is fair given the fact that they have had one and dones in each of the last two playoffs. I think it's understandable. I think it's maybe a little bit of low hanging fruit, a little recency bias, but I understand it. And then meanwhile, on the other side, you have Texas, who's got a crazy high ceiling, probably the most talented team in the league. I don't know if anyone's pushing back on that, but we haven't exactly seen them solve the Georgia equation yet. So how do you assess kind of the top of the league right now when you put together the pecking order?
Yeah, you're right. It is kind of like the highest floor with one team and the highest ceiling with the other. They're both top 10 in returning production, although Texas obviously imported a lot of that production. And it just comes down to, Georgia's projected fourth, Texas projected sixth, and that's probably mainly because Texas finished, where did they finish last season? They were 17th at the end of the year. They just really never, offense started to come together, defense started to regress at the end of the season. It was just never a complete picture. So they're projected to improve and just jumping from a lot further down. SP Plus just wasn't really all that impressed with the Longhorns. So it'll be really interesting. I feel like Texas traded depth for upside, bringing in like 5 stars and chasing off 10 guys in the process. And I'm really curious how that pays off. But if the starting 22 that we expected at the beginning of the year stays on the field most of the year, it's hard to imagine them not being really, really good.
I just got one bone to pick with you about this list. I know you have people push back all the time, but Coast Guard at 557, it's disrespect is what it is.
But I make up for it with Merchant Marine. I'm expecting big things out of Merchant Marine this year.
Okay, I Puget Sound at 737. There's obvious bias here. I don't think we can debate it.
Oberlin, don't even get me started on Oberlin. I had to keep them way down there.
Okay, well we can discuss those next time you're on. But I just how you have Madonna at 743 with all the work she put in. It's tough to imagine.
Apparently, it's a material.
Just not going to be able to keep up. Not enough depth there.
There you go. Bill, always great, man. Really appreciate the time, man. Look forward to having you back again soon.
Absolutely. Take care.
All right, Bill Connelly, his S&P rankings up now, which would follow up my initial thought, which is why I was surprised accidentally looking at the 25 rankings of where he would have Ole Miss. I want to go into that further when we come back next right here on Jocks. 9:16 Monday, August 17th on Jocks, talking Bill Connelly's S&P rankings out now. You see Ole Miss fairly far down the list compared to where I think I would have them. They come in at 16, which is behind Michigan, behind Tennessee, behind Alabama, USC, and then I think we get into some of the regular characters that would probably not be debatable or very understandable that they would be ahead of them in Ohio State, Georgia, Notre Dame, Oregon, Indiana, Texas, Miami. I think Texas Tech, Texas A&M, LSU, we could even have a discussion about. But 16, Greg, it just goes further with the computers not liking Ole Miss this year, which to me is just a little bit odd based on what's returning.
Yeah, do you think it has a lot to do with the fact that they may have overachieved the year before?
But what metrics would lead to you seeing that? Like, what would the computers see with that? Like, close games?
I don't know. Like, I just feel like last year, for example, I had questions about Ole Miss going into the season. Like, I thought they'd be pretty good. I didn't think they'd be as good as the year before. And yet they were better. And yet the computers loved them last year. Like, they were number 9, I think, in the preseason, according to, like, power ratings and things like that. And I'm like, golly, that seems high for Ole Miss, doesn't it? And they clearly knew something. It's like when you underachieved the year before, you overachieved the following year, and when you overachieved the previous year, maybe you underachieved the next year. So I don't know. Maybe that's why. I like Ole Miss this year. I really like Ole Miss. But then again, I also have them in the cluster of about 6 teams that I think could all win the league potentially. Like, yes, I think Georgia and Texas are a cut above, but then you take the next grouping in whatever order you want to have them in with Ole Miss, Bama, Oklahoma, A&M, and LSU. Like, any one of those 5 teams, I'd be perfectly content with making the case that they're the 3rd best team in the league. Yep. I wouldn't let you push back on any of those. Like, I'd listen. I'd understand why you felt the way you felt, and I wouldn't make an argument against it because that grouping to me is very, very close.
I wouldn't really disagree with any of that, which again brings to the surprise that Ole Miss is all the way down at 16. That's why I asked Bill about the head coach metric. Like, I know their records, and Pete Golding doesn't have a lot of games on his record as the head coach anywhere, and that's something that could knock you down just a little bit. But man, playmaker back at quarterback, and one of the things that I was going to bring up with Ole Miss is hearing great things about Caleb Odom in camp and the tight end group and how he's performing and kind of taking ownership of that position, which only makes that offense that much more dangerous to have numbers at tight end and then guys that can be dynamic at tight end. There's just not much to not like about Ole Miss right now other than what's new, which you and I talk about a lot. And to see LSU at 10 and Ole Miss at 16, LSU's dealing with just as much new as Ole Miss is. When you're referencing different people in different places, guys playing football together, that if anything, Ole Miss will have a hell of a lot more continuity than LSU is going to have this year.
For sure.
On the offensive line, on the defensive line, in the secondary. Now, you have Blake Baker back, which helps. Guys that have been in that system, been in that scheme. But at the end of the day, it's Pete Golding's scheme on defense. They know it. They've been in it. You bring some new guys in, but, I mean, the foundation of the defense is there. It's been built. It's been set. They know what it is. Offensively, yes, it's a new scheme, a new play caller, but it's extremely similar. Terminology did not stay the same, so they didn't carry that over, but they're sort of teetering things towards the quarterback and what he likes and what he can do. And let's also think, too, like you brought it up yesterday. I've told the story 100 times that Lane Kiffin told us going into the opener last year how bad Trinidad was in practice and how good he was in scrimmages. He wasn't set to be the guy. He's had a whole off season now to improve on little details of his game that he may be able to improve on now that he wasn't working on at this time last year. So, to me, there's still room for improvement with some of the things at Ole Miss that we really like about them.
100%. Like, I think they're like the parts that we like most about LSU are their quarterback and their running back. Like, that's what everyone loves most, understandably. Like, do I think Trinidad can be better? For sure. Because I think last year there were still parts of his game that were a work in progress. Like, I thought last year there were times where it's like, dang, man, what's going on there for an 8-play sequence? I mean, if he can just get rid of those and just be steady, that'd be amazing, you know? And he still has that take over the game potential. So I think when you look at everything, I really like Ole Miss this year. I do think my biggest holdup with Ole Miss is that I do think the schedule is a little bit tougher, for sure. I do think they're tough. It's tougher. And I am a little bit concerned about the wide receiver spot. Like, do I think Caleb Odom's got a chance to have a good year? Absolutely. But I also know that last year's group of tight ends and wide receivers were legit. And I don't know if they're going to be as good at that spot this season. And this offense, with a new offensive coordinator, I think Charlie Weiss was a game changer. I think his loss is maybe even bigger than Lane Kiffin's in some ways. So it doesn't mean John David Baker can't call it. It just means it might be different. And that might be a bit of a transition for them on that side of the ball.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch. I think people are way too far down on Ole Miss this year. Like, I don't have Ole Miss in the category of Tennessee, Penn State, Washington, Missouri, BYU. Like, that's their collection in Bill's rankings right now. And by the way, his are not too dissimilar from some other computer rankings that I've seen out with Ole Miss either. So there's something happening with the algorithm of Ole Miss in the computer rankings, which is great. Good for y'all. But based on what I've seen and what I know and what I feel about what's going to be there that we've actually watched with our eyes, I feel a little bit better about them. Maybe it's going to 9 games and the schedule, I don't know. Now, the schedule's been lighter the last few years, so they've been easier to like. I get that.
Sure.
But, I mean, we have to look at that. That has to be a part of the conversation. But the schedule thing to me is, if you're a really good team, you're going to be able to manage it. You might drop a game or two here or there, but you're still going to have a strong record, and you're still going to be viewed as a very good football team. I think Oklahoma's the best example of that last year. Like, right now, a year ago, we were talking about the Oklahoma schedule as in it was Mount Everest. It was going to be the most difficult ascent ever. Like, on a miserable weather day, it was Mount Everest. They just weren't going to be able to get towards the top of that thing. They weren't even going to get halfway up it. It was too hard. And look what kind of year they put together. Why? They were a really good football team, which is why they were able to overcome how difficult the schedule was. So, but I don't see any people talking about that with Ohio State. Is Ohio State's schedule not brutal?
It's brutal.
But they're Ohio State. Correct. So it's like we allowed that. It's the same thing with Georgia last year. Was Georgia's schedule not insane last year?
I feel like their schedule was very difficult, yeah.
So, but they were Georgia. And so it's like, oh, they can manage it. So I still think there's a little bit of this. Ole Miss hasn't been at this party for very long, so we're still not super confident they can handle all these aspects that come with this. I don't know how a computer would rate that, grade that, analyze that, but somehow within all of this, that's got to be a part of where they're finishing in some of these preseason mathematical rankings.
But there is a baked-in trust that exists with Ohio State. There's a baked-in trust that exists with Georgia. There's a baked-in trust that exists with some of the top teams. Oregon, I think, even gets some of the benefit of the doubt.
They've earned it recently. Answer me Texas Tech at 8 then for all these people.
Because they're going to finish 11-1. They're just fast-forwarding and looking at what their record's going to be at the end of the season. Texas Tech might very well be 11-1 at season's end, and I still might not have them in my top 12.
Right.
I mean, they're going to make the playoff if they go 11-1, win the Big 12. They're going to make the playoffs. So it doesn't really matter where they're ranked. But I think people are just looking at it and say, oh, well, they're going to be 11-1. They're favored in every game by a considerable margin. So, yeah, I feel pretty good about the Red Raiders, which, by the way, who can push back on that? Everybody ranks things differently. Some people rank based on the quality of the team itself. Some people rank based on what they think the record will be at season's end. It doesn't make it wrong, just means it's a different point of perspective. I try to rank on quality, and then when I think things are close, then I'll look at the schedule. The schedule to me is the tiebreaker at the end of the practice of trying to rank the teams, not at the beginning. And for some people, it's at the beginning. And I don't blame anybody for having Texas Tech ranked up there really, really high because their final record is going to be outstanding.
How many are they going to drop ultimately?
0. They should.
You don't think they're going to lose a game?
They shouldn't. I think they will because that's just what happens in today's day and age of college football. But
I'm saying if we fast forward into the season, regular season, how many losses does Texas Tech have this year? I'm going to say 2.
1.
I say 2.
But traditionally,
more than likely is getting you in. Yeah,
it's 10-2 is with with a 11-2 with a conference title, like they're going to be a top 10 team at worst.
Would not push back on that. I just think that there are more, and I'm not saying they lose all these games. I think there are more potential losses than people are giving, and you've given the other teams on the schedule that credit. I think you believe Texas Tech's going to be a good football team, as do I. But being this sort of finished product year after year, they're automatically in the top 10. I'm still kind of amazed that they got to that point as quickly as they did, because I thought your Oregon reference point was very fair and great. It took Oregon a while to get here.
Yes.
To where we are with that built-in trust, that built-in confidence. Now, probably best defensive line in college football returning.
Definitely.
Top 5 quarterback in college football returning.
Definitely.
Dynamic receiving core with, you're bringing Evan Stewart back. You already got a couple of guys that are going to be great. Like, there's a couple of people lost on the offensive line and tight end, but
sure,
they're going to be legit. But they've also shown slight improvement with a very good football team over the last few years. It's like Texas Tech just all of a sudden, like, bam, we got here, and we trust them every year now. And I like Will Hammond. I love some of the guys they got through the portal up front, but I'm not buying this. It's automatic there in the playoffs. They shouldn't lose a game. Cincinnati's going to have the offensive line to be able to offset a little bit of that defensive front. Like, that'll give them an advantage in that game. I think the Houston game is going to be tough. Say what you want about it. I think Houston's going to be a really good football team this year. I think at Oak State later in the year is going to be tough. I think West Virginia home is going to be difficult. I think Arizona State could give them problems. So TCU at the end of the season is not going to be a cakewalk for them by any stretch of the imagination. But why do we say cakewalk, by the way?
You mean like in a bigger picture sense, or are you talking
like when we
about
talk about an easy team, like an easy game, like, oh, it's cakewalk. Why do we say that? Because didn't we used to have the cakewalk at the fall festival where like everybody baked the cake, you put them on the desks, and you put them in a circle, you walked around.
It was pretty easy to figure out what you wanted.
It was almost like musical chairs, and you stopped and got one, or you picked the one you want. Honestly, don't remember.
I feel like you got to pick what you wanted, but also it goes back to them being cupcakes. So you were just walking around and kind of picking out the easy treat, the easy dessert.
I know that the Hall Camp Fall Festival every year there was a cakewalk. And because we had a haunted house, a legit hayride where you got on the back of like a dump truck that had hay in it. And then there was also a legit car bash where, like, I remember when it first started, they had the windshields in it because that'd be the first thing you'd go for. They gave you a sledgehammer and you bought tickets for turns at the car. That's legit what it was. We would never do that in today's society, unfortunately. But maybe we should do a little bit more of that. But I don't remember exactly what the cakewalk was because I never went in there.
Really? You?
No. And I love cake.
I know. That's surprising.
Cakewalk is an informal term for a very easy task, a smooth activity, or an effortless victory. That's not what I needed.
So you
need
needed
etymology.
Yeah. Makes sense. Makes sense. I mean, cakewalk, I don't know the genesis, so I can't.
Let's be honest.
I can't sit there and speak to it.
Sounds a lot better than a cake run because as much as I love cake, I don't think we're running for it.
I don't think those two go together very well.
No.
Historical syncopated stage dance and musical style from the ragtime era that heavily influenced early jazz and modern dance.
I think ours was better.
Okay. Cakewalk is a dance developed from the prize walks dance contest with a cake awarded as the prize, held in the mid-19th century. Generally, at get-togethers, they would come up with alternate names for different things like cakewalks. Okay, this doesn't explain what happened at fall festivals back in the day.
No.
I just need to know, did you decide the cake and you just went in, or were you able to pick one?
I think you had to get there early.
And
you
like
got to choose.
the Johnsons made the strawberry cake, the Evans made carrot cake, and you just said
red velvet. Let's go there.
Yeah, let's get that one. Take it home.
Yeah, dude.
That's a lot of trust, by the way, too. Back then, when random families would make a cake and you put it on a desk and you went and picked one out and took it home.
Yep.
That also doesn't happen this day and age.
No, not really.
Times have changed.
Too many allergies too.
Okay. We'll get away from that. Talk more college football next on Jocks. I want to stay with rankings since we just had the S&P rankings from Bill Connelly that we discussed. How would you rank college football's conferences currently? That list is out. We'll get to it in just a moment. You want to be a part of the show, 205-834-9450. You can text in, call in there. You can tweet in at Mac and Cube to be a part of this conversation that we're going to have coming up. If you've missed the podcast with Paul Feinbaum, Jason Caldwell, Bill Connelly, jocksfm.com. You can always go find them there. Apple Podcast, Spotify, wherever you get yours. Also, you can go to the app. Just search Jocks945 there or on YouTube, and you can watch the show back live. Before we continue there, Greg, tell our listeners about Bromberg's.
To for a long time. It's just the best. It's an elevated experience. Second you walk in the door, you'll understand why. You go and meet with their friendly sales staff, their knowledgeable sales staff, and they can help point you in the right direction. Look, I don't know a whole lot about jewelry. I'm not going to sit there and lie. I don't know a lot about it. So I have to rely on the expertise that the sales staff has. They help kind of steer me in the right direction, help me make decisions on things that will last the test of time. Then purchase something at Bromberg, something I want to pass down from one generation to the next. So that's really, really valuable to know that you can trust them. They've been around for nearly 200 years. So this is an experience that you can trust as well. So highly recommend you going out and checking Bromberg's in Mountain Brook Village or at the Summit. You can also check them out online at brombergs.com.
All right, Cody Nagel has his conference rankings out. This is at cbssports.com. If you wanted to take a guess, Greg, at the Power Four, how they would be ranked for Cody, which direction would you go? Or I guess, how would you rank the Power Four conferences?
I was going to say, well, Cody's right here. But for me, I look at depth. I've always valued depth. How many teams can win the league? So I've leaned SEC for a while in this argument. I think the quality of personnel that you get even on Team 14 is superior to that of what you get from Team 14 in the Big Ten. That's my assessment. I do think it's closer this year than it's been in a really long time. And part of that has to do with the fact that I think the top teams in the Big Ten this year are a little better than the top teams in the SEC, at least on paper going into the season. But I would also say teams 4 through 7 in the Big Ten, including the likes of Penn State, SC, a handful of others, like I think those teams have collectively taken a step, which makes this argument a little bit tougher. So I'd go SEC 1, but very, very close. Then the Big Ten, followed by the ACC, followed by the Big 12.
Is this closer or close at all for you, Damian, SEC, Big Ten, when you're ranking Power Four conferences?
Yeah, it'll be close. I still give the, kind of to Greg's point, I still give the edge to the SEC being at the top.
I think when you look at this and you say, kind of go where Greg went earlier, teams who can win the league, that has to be something that you value. Teams that can win a national championship also has to be something that you value. I don't know. I do think can win the league. Is that list bigger for you, Greg, for the SEC than the Big Ten? You already said that, but can win a national title. Would that list be bigger in the SEC or the Big Ten for you?
To win a whole title, it'd be the SEC.
If we ran down SEC teams we think can win a national championship, what are we going to get to? 4, 5? We think Georgia. We think Texas.
Maybe even more. Georgia, Texas, Bama, Oklahoma, and A&M, and Ole Miss. So 6.
Okay, and that's leaving LSU out, which a lot of people would put in that mix. So 6.
Yeah, I think
there.
LSU. I'd add LSU to that. That's an oversight on my part. I'd add LSU to that because I do think their ceiling's there. There's also a pretty low floor relative to what you'd normally get from a national championship contender.
All right, if we went Big Ten, we're going to go Ohio State, Oregon. Those are going to be there. We're going to go Indiana. That's going to be 3 definitively, and then we have to start maybe a bit of a. I think SC is going to be there for most people. Pay attention to it. 4.
Yes.
And then we have to start saying, all right, can Washington extend to that? Can Minnesota, Illinois extend to that? Penn State extend to that? I think it may stop at 4.
Yeah.
I don't put Penn State in there. I think Penn State can get to the playoff, but I look at a lot of the personnel that they brought from Iowa State. Like I think it's a really solid foundation I think it's a really solid floor. But the main reason why I'm bullish on Penn State this year is because of their schedule, which doesn't help you in the postseason. So they can get there. I just don't know if they can get it done when they get there.
Yeah, 100%. So it feels like all of us may lean SEC over Big Ten, which Cody actually has Big Ten over the SEC. He goes with the recent postseason record. Since the Power Four realignment, Big Ten owns the best postseason record. It's 9-3 against other conferences in the college football playoff. So they've got that strength, and obviously winning a couple national championships in a row doesn't hurt. But I will say, being deeper may give the edge to the SEC for a lot of people. SEC would be 2 for him. Then I need to know if you're surprised that he has the Big 12 third.
Well, it is a little counterintuitive when I'm sitting there citing the strength of the SEC. It is certainly it contradicts what I just said a moment ago. Say SEC's best because of depth. Well, there's more depth in the Big 12, but both leagues, the Big 12 and the ACC, to me are very, very top heavy. Like, I think Miami's kind of in a league of their own in the ACC. But if I look at teams 2, 3, 4, I'd probably go Big 12 2. So Texas Tech and BYU 2. I would have Miami ahead of Texas Tech, which helps. But as far as I would put Texas Tech not that dissimilar to a Louisville, to an SMU, to a Clemson. Like, I think those teams are kind of close. So how would you assess it?
Tell me how crazy I would be if I told you that 5 teams in the ACC can win the league. Actually, 6. Sorry.
I would disagree with you there.
Miami?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Louisville?
Yes.
Georgia Tech?
No.
Ooh.
What was that response for?
I'm not completely against it.
Mendoza's been ripping it up in practice.
And Brent Key, the way they're going to be
okay.
They welcome that style.
Cal?
No. Too early. Too much new.
Clemson?
Yes.
Yes.
SMU?
Yes.
Yes.
How are we going to say Clemson can win the league?
Wait, so you would have Cal and Georgia Tech in there right now?
Can win the league. Not will. Could.
No, I know.
Possibly
win
the league.
Will.
Yes, I would have them. I would have them there. Yes.
Why? Why on Georgia Tech first?
Love what they have on the offensive line. You bring a hammer in at running back. A little bit of concern about the change in coordinator there, but I think Mendoza's going to be good. And I hear great things about him in camp so far.
But what was their downfall last year?
Probably balance.
Defense.
Yeah. Both sides of the ball is what
has that gotten addressed? Until I see a significant step forward on that side of the ball, I might have a hard time trusting them to win a conference title. Like, the defense has been a problem.
No Miami, no SMU on the schedule.
Schedule's fine.
Yeah.
You put them against Miami though in a conference title game. Like, I don't like their chances if their defense isn't great against the run.
That's fair.
I mean, the defense to me is the holdup for Georgia Tech. Yeah, Buster Faulkner being gone, also a challenge to overcome that for sure. So defensively there. Let's go to the next one that you just referenced in Cal. Same things, a lot of similarities here, and it'll sound a bit strange. A lot of similarities between Cal and LSU. Like, do I think they've improved in some areas on their roster as far as their personnel? No doubt about it. Like, do I think their ceiling is much higher this year than it was? Absolutely. But there's still a lot of unknowns there. And it's a first-time head coach.
A ton. Yeah, it's fair.
There's a lot of unknowns. I don't disagree that they have good quality personnel. I think they have good back. I love their quarterback. I think they have good personnel at wide receiver. Defensively, I have some questions. You know, I'll just freely admit that I don't know what they're going to look like all 3 levels defensively. But, like, I get what you're saying, but if you're slightly bearish on LSU, you probably should be slightly bearish on Cal if we're just drawing some parallels.
Oh, no, there wasn't a ton of confidence that they will. I was just saying can win the conference. So that's kind of where I was with them. All right, quickly, Big 12.
Wait, so you're not adding Florida State to that mix?
No.
You have Cal ahead of Florida State as far as Ken.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Florida State's still not blocking anybody.
Oh, boy.
So
blocking is overrated.
It is.
But it's fundamental.
It is overrated, and it also gets you beat in a hurry. All right, Big 12. This is super interesting. I mean, Texas Tech, BYU are definitive yes.
Yes.
Do we have – I'm going to put Houston in can win the league.
Okay.
And then I confuse myself here because, like, I want to say Kansas State can win the league. I want to say Utah can win the league. I don't know.
I don't know.
I mean, I want to say West Virginia has an outside shot. I don't really believe that. A lot of people are going to tell you Oklahoma State has an outside shot. I don't believe that. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think they can win the league. I just don't. I want to feel like Arizona State can, but I can't. I'm having a hard time convincing myself. So I'm just going to go to you, Greg, outside of Texas Tech and BYU, who can win the Big 12?
I would say I almost said North Texas. I would say Oklahoma State.
Okay.
Just their style, and if for whatever reason it becomes a track meet and it's like the Big 12 of old, like seriously, do I think that they're just going to score 40 on Texas Tech? No, I don't. I'm not super confident in that, but I do think that their style of play is a little bit different, and if it becomes a shootout, I don't hate their chances. So I would say Oklahoma State is one that could, but there's a lot of unknowns there. Same concerns I would have with Cal and LSU. Like you can like them, but that's a pretty significant step up in the quality of defense that they're going to play on a week in, week out basis. So
Are we way off on TCU here by just not even mentioning them in any of these conversations?
No, I think TCU is going to be good.
Yeah, I mean the Jaden Craig kid, big, physical, huge arm, has had success. Now lower level, I get it. Obviously this offense requires some intermediate accuracy, quick decision making, but I like what you have at tight end. I like what you have at running back. You've got good depth at wide receiver. Should we just at least be having conversations about TCU being in the mix in the Big 12? I don't feel like anybody's mentioning anything about them this offseason.
No, they're very quiet. I think they're a fringe top 25 team. So I think that when taking that into account, them being a fringe top 25 team, I have Texas Tech like 15th. So if TCU is 26th or 27th or 25th, like that's not a huge gap. Could TCU win it? Absolutely. Do I think they will? I don't know. Too many unknowns right now. Slightly different offensive philosophy they're going with. Going to slow things down a bit. Maybe not run the crazy tempo that we've had in the past. That'll be worth watching. That'll be worth adjusting to. Does that help their defense? Perhaps. I mean, I like TCU. I always like TCU, but winning the league, yeah, they could, but I don't know if I'd have them. I don't know if their ceiling is going to be as high as some of the other teams we've talked about, even Oklahoma State in that scenario.
Like, I would love to say that Arizona State can win the Big 12, but not with Cutter Bully at quarterback from what I've seen. Like, and nothing against him. Like, I just don't think he's that guy. I mean, I just don't.
What about Utah?
I have no idea what to expect. I just don't. I mean, some massive departures on the offensive line. Devin Dampier can go at quarterback, but what's it going to look like? I mean, it's a big shift from the top down. I know he's been there for a while, but I don't. Do you think Utah can win the Big 12, Greg?
Yes, but I think there's a lot of unknowns there.
It is the weirdest conference to handicap right now. Seriously, going into the season. It's just there's a lot of weird. Tell our listeners about Canty.
Well, Canty can fix it. And that's one thing that I've known for a while now. And we know, look, this summer it's been crazy hot. We've also had some erratic rain. So knowing that Canty can come out and get things taken care of with your foundation can be helpful. I mean, you might be discovering the occasional leak in your basement, maybe in your foundation, your crawl space as well. When you walk in your basement, is it damp? Does it feel musty? Well, water intrusion can lead to foundation damage. It can lead to mold, allergies. It can obviously ruin your belongings as well. Well, Canty Foundation Specialists can help. They are the experts in basement waterproofing. They'll come out, they'll do an inspection on water damage or any other foundation issues you might have. So if you're noticing some cracks, if you're noticing a certain mustiness in your crawl space, in your basement, get it taken care of. by getting Canty out for a free inspection estimate and know that their work is backed by a lifetime transferable warranty. So call them today at 205-509-3991 or visit them online, Canty Can Fix It. That's Cantey, canfixit.com.
All right, be back with some bad box scores of the day next on Jocks. Welcome back in. McElroy and Kublik in the morning. It is 9:52 Monday, August 17th, right here on Jocks, GMC's Dealer of the Year. Again, 6 years in a row. 9 times overall now is Bill Smith Buick GMC, Alabama's largest GMC dealer with Alabama's largest discounts. Best customer service. 75% of their sales are from repeat customers. Right now, current specials include a brand new GMC Sierra 1500 Crew Cab SLT loaded with X31 off-road package. Bill Smith discounts it by $15,000, better than 20% off MSRP. Or you can take $16,000 off a new Denali 1500 pickup or the heavy-duty Sierra 2500 Denali Ultimate, biggest discount ever, $12,000 below sticker. Nowhere else you're going to find a dealer giving you discounts this deep. Bill Smith, celebrating 70 years in business. That's right, since 1956, family-owned, locally owned. General Manager Andy Cole and his team make sure you leave a satisfied customer. Don't forget at Bill Smith, over 75% of their sales are from repeat customers. The savings and customer service, well worth the short drive of 565 to 310 in Coleman. And the GMC's 9-time Dealer of the Year. You can also shop online at BillSmithBuickGMC.com. Bad box scores of the day coming to you now. Our chosen sons, the Soldotna.
They're the Stars.
Superstars.
Took on the Wasilla
Warriors
over the weekend. They start the season out after a three-peat of state championships last year with a 49-14 victory over Wasilla.
Ooh, close.
Domination
Let's
continues.
go.
Why'd they score 14?
It's a fair point and a fair question, but hey, it's early in the season. You got to build some of that depth. So you got to get some of the second teamers in late. But nonetheless, a strong victory there. A couple of updates, not necessarily bad box scores, but since we hear from these teams, your IFL champion are the Arizona Rattlers. They knocked off the Green Bay Blizzard 62-51 over the weekend.
Did you watch it?
I wasn't able to find that one online. I wasn't able to stream that one.
Not surprising.
Also,
You
in
promised us that you would watch it, though.
the European Football Alliance, you had the Munich
Ravens.
knock
Ravens.
off the Frankfurt
Galaxy.
Galaxy.
in a game, by the way, that is referenced as the German Derby.
Okay.
I learned that last night.
Let's
I
go.
like that one.
Munich gets the win 52-33 over the Galaxy. That game was 21-0 in the first quarter. And then in a bad box score of the day, the Nordic
Storm.
smashed the Paris Musketeers 45-6
Hey.
over the weekend
G-Mac.
in live tackle football.
My guy.
boy.
De Leon dialing it up.
Let's go.
In the German Football League,
Let's go. GFL.
the Potsdam,
They're the Pirates.
they're not. No,
The Possums.
no, not that either. They are the Royals. And they got to 9-1 over the weekend against the Braunschweig.
Broncos.
No,
Brunhildes.
no,
I'm going to say the Bruins.
Lions.
Okay.
The Royals get to
No
9-1.
imagination.
The Lions go to 3-8 in a 61-0 matchup in live tackle football in Germany over the weekend.
Got out of hand.
Is it good ball over there?
Good defense.
For Potsdam, it is.
Yeah, for one side.
For Braunschweig,
30.
I don't think it is. At 3-8, losing 61-0 over the weekend. So those are your bad box scores of the day. We'll have more for you tomorrow. Also coming up tomorrow on the show, Andy Burcham begins his weekly visits at 8 a.m. Anwar Richardson going to be with us at 7:30 as well to talk Texas camp. Are there some concerns about depth with a little bit of an illness in camp? And Arch Manning threw an interception over the weekend.
Oh, no.
Oh, boy.
Well, we'll talk about it tomorrow morning. Three-man front comes at you next.